Awesome. So, to kick things off, I do start with the same boring ass question because I refuse to think of anything better. Simple introduction, man. Who are you? What are we doing? What's this project? And we'll just roll from there.
Man, that's a loaded question. I mean, my name is Dex. I mean, most people call me D. It's just nickname I've always gone by. Guitar player in dead7. What are we doing? Man, that's the question. That's the golden question, honestly. Sometimes I don't even think there's a real answer. I think really
Right.
music, fun, trying to make something that I think really represents us, but also drives some emotional, relation with other people and being able to, you know, capture that kind of, I think, emotion that people can relate to that, I think everybody kind of experiences in one way or another. Have content that people can kind of, I guess I've said it a lot, relate to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I absolutely get that. And I think, that's one of the things I love about what I've found out about you guys so far and what I've listened to is there's so much authenticity that it's hard not to relate to it because I think you guys are kind of unapologetically yourselves. The
yeah.
the sound is diverse, the content is diverse, and it's just like this cool project where at least from an outsider's perspective where you're kind of just going, "Hey, we're just fucking people and this is what's happening."
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think the fun part for me of it all is like I get my friends who are like, "Yo, man, I saw you were in a band," and then I listen to it, and it's like, "What?" Dude? Like, and it's like, "Yeah, man." I just the first thing they always want to ask, like, "Who are your influences?" It's like, dude, that we got a million influences. It's just whatever sounds good at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
our writing process is definitely it's new to me because as a musician, the first thing you always want to do is write a song and then go show it to
Mhm.
the band and be like, "Hey guys, look at this song I wrote," and we don't really do things that way. We kind of write riffs, we write ideas, and then we go in and we all just kind of sit down, and then the goal is, okay, is this a song? And then let's write it, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. And then what you thought the song was gonna be, yeah, it never turns out that way.
No.
Not at all.
No. And that's the beauty of it though, right?
Yeah.
There's the old like cliche or trope that like art is never truly finished or whatever. So to like come in to the studio or just a writing session with the guys and be like, "Hey, I've got this really cool thing," and then be able to like look at it and be like, "Hey, that is pretty cool, but if we add this, it changes to that. And if we do this, this happens."
Oh yeah, I tell people, it'll test you, man. I tell some of my best friends because we'll kind of talk and they're in other bands. I was like, it's like a battleground sometimes because I'm a pretty hardcore kind of guy. Like I
Yeah.
love knock loose, but I also grew up on old metalcore as they call it. Kill Switch
Yeah.
is probably my favorite metal band of all time, and like so I have certain niches that I have to get out of sometimes. And, I'll write something and one of our producers' name is Caleb. People like, that's cool, but like, no.
Yeah.
Gotta swallow my pride a little bit. And, he'll kind of, he'll make it work and kind of show a different way of it. And, I just think that that's kind of, something that's just, it's like I said, it's just a whole new experience, man.
Yeah, well, and I think it comes with the ground of, trying to create something unique, right? Especially in this kind of space, because breakdowns happen every single day. And you know what I mean? Like everybody's trying new shit. And I think it's cool that you bring that up though, that like at least you have the humility to like know when to back down or to compromise.
Yeah.
Because like you could stand on that hill and be like, nope, I'm dying right here. And then nothing happens, right? The
Right.
song doesn't get made or whatever.
Right, right, absolutely, man. And like, I think that's something we've all, as a band, I'd say, have done really well at. It's what I would say if I was one thing I specifically love about my band members is, man, I think we all do a very good job with swallowing ego. We all got it a little bit,
Yeah.
'cause I think you need it as a musician, and people, I mean, if you've ever seen those comments, sometimes people will tear into you when you don't write songs they particularly love, but it's one of those things where it's like, humility goes a long way. It develops you as a musician, I think. And like, I think honestly, I've learned a lot because of that. I would definitely say most of the things I've learned haven't been of my own, regard. It's because some
Yeah.
other guy was like, hey man, like sit back and just watch. And it's like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah, my dad was in the military, and one of the things he always drilled into me is you never walk into a room believing that you're the smartest man in that room.
I tell my son that all the time.
Yeah.
So that's great advice. It
Yeah.
really
And
is.
it's crazy, like no, and I think that applies to like whether it's music or whatever, because I think so often people, get so confident, cocky, whatever, arrogant with some of their skills. And then it's like, okay, but there's a better way to do it, or somebody's seen this for a lot longer. And even just seeing the other side of it, right? Like you mentioned your producer, like I'm sure he writes music and stuff too.
Yeah.
But for him to go, yeah, but from an engineering standpoint, this is how that's going to work. Oh, cool. Didn't think about that.
Exactly, man. I tell all my guitar friends that when the first thing they ask me is like being signed, they some reason that means a lot to people. They think you're like the go-to guy for some reason. They're like, okay, what advice you have? And one thing I tell people is Eddie Van Halen has already come and gone. Randy Rose has already
Yeah.
come and gone.
Yeah.
You can't be those guys, and those guys are one of a kind, talents. And it's not to say, hey, you can't be as talented, but the goal is, be yourself. Take your influence, but don't try to be the best guy in the room. Don't try to be the most flashiest guitar on stage because you're so busy focusing on that. Are you realizing what you're bringing to the song or what you're taking away from it? And I think that's an important mindset to have, especially when you're writing music. It's like, okay, this is cool. And hey, I could shred all day, I could chug all day, but does this bring justice to the song? Does this need this?
Yeah, and I think that's a key piece that we can definitely talk about, especially when we dive into this new album some, is knowing that maybe I do have a super cool riff, but if it doesn't add an element to the song, then why would we shoehorn it into this and make it a point where it at some point will draw attention away from what your message is, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So for you guys, as you're writing, you've already kind of touched on this, kind of all over the place, right? You the style. So when you think about that, do you think that benefits the soundscapes that you guys are creating because it's not as structured in a sense where it's like, hey, we've already written the guitars, this is what it's going to be, and now it's just like, well, I've got this riff, he's got this lyric, he's got this bass line, like fuck it, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not having it pre-structured, I think is kind of a helping hand because, like I said, the biggest issue is you have it in your mind, especially if you're the guy that wrote it. And like, I don't, I write my parts, but like in our way earlier stuff before we were ever this band and my prior bands, I would write a lot of the songs and I'd come in and
Mhm.
that would just be the song. And it's
Yeah.
like, when you're used to that, you really get stuck into that. And whatever you've written, that's the song. And if it's either hit or miss at that point, versus you can write an idea and find more creative ways to build off of it, especially having more than one brain in a room. I think that's the biggest point for me, is that it's realizing when you have a full band that contributes and they all have an opinion, and when everybody respects that opinion from each other, you build so much more. You could build a
Yeah.
house by yourself, but with a team, you're going to build a much nicer house. So,
For sure. And I think too, it becomes, and you can speak to this, I'm sure, when you're writing the song entirely yourself, it takes away the ability for the others to put the emotion into it.
exactly, 100%. And like, Jason, I'm not sure if you've seen our live stuff, but the guy's a very expressive guy on stage. And,
Yeah.
that's one of the things I love about him. And, I think when he got the ability to write and, be more free and try different things that he'd never really been able to try. I mean, it really just brought a whole new element to our music. And like, that was something that him and the producers were very adamant on. They made everybody else leave, and it was just them. So he had his creative freedom and like helping him just express himself out on the record. And I think honestly, you hear it in our music, it makes a huge impact in my opinion. And you're exactly right. You got to give everybody else room to express themselves. You got to get everybody a room to, create and feel like they've been a part of it so that, when you're playing that on stage, it all translates. When you're pushing their music and you're talking to people or interviews like this, for example, you have something to be able to go off of and kind of point back to when you're going over different songs or talking about different parts and why or how they came to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And, obviously the flip side of that would be, if you're a solo artist and you're just paying touring musicians or whatever, like, sure, write all the pieces because they're just there to collect a check.
Oh, yeah.
Not to say that they're not incredibly talented, because they are, obviously, but
Oh,
like,
yeah. Ole England, he does that a
yeah,
lot.
like, it's where a lot of the money is in the industry right now. And it is what it is. And if you can be incredibly successful at it, and you're okay with that, just go play parts.
True.
So
Definitely.
let's dive into the new album. So you've got a album coming out via SharpTone Records. So before we jump onto the album, let's talk about SharpTone, right?
Right.
Incredible label. Let's
Indeed.
talk about, I do so many conversations with their artists, and everybody says the same thing. I'm sure you will too. Feel free if not, but like everybody is like, dude, they don't put us in any sort of box. They don't give us handcuffs. It's go be yourselves, and we'll just help you turn it up.
Oh yeah, man. I big shout out to Sal and all those people. Honestly, there's a lot of people. I
Yeah.
apologize because it's hard to keep up sometimes. There's so much support from them, man. And like, even the president of the company reaches out and likes our, listens to our music, gives us feedback. I just think personally that goes such a long way, especially as a musician who's, trying to get your feet wet as a new signed band. It really helps, even obviously as a they're veteran bands as well that are on the label. And,
Yeah.
they're just, like you said, they don't put you in a box. They're really behind you and your image. And I think they focus rather on, hey, we're trying to make the next this band. It's, hey, we're trying to push you to be the best version of your band that you can be. Because if you do that right, that can take you far. Every band has
Mm-hmm.
an audience. And if what you need and you have the right tools and you're willing to do it, you can make that, that audience for yourself. And they're really, they're just really supportive. Honestly, I couldn't really ask for a better label. And I mean, they're subsidiary of Nuclear Blast. I said I'd love to be on
Yeah.
Nuclear Blast, but and
Hey.
then still in general though, they're I couldn't ask for a better group of people and a better label to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, again, that's everything I've heard. I've worked with their press teams for a long time, and obviously, I'm 40, so I've kind of seen the label as it's grown and all the artists that have come through it, and it's really cool because I think the thing about Sharptone is it never has felt like they've tried to be anything but what they are either. They've never tried to be, Victory Records or Hopeless Records or RCA. Like, it's no, we're Sharptone. This is what we
Yeah.
fucking do.
Yeah, and honestly, they have a lot of my favorite bands. Like I was a big We Came as Romans fans and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So like just seeing that they had those bands, I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
it's like what I got to do to go meet these guys.
Well, you just need one of the label tours to happen, right? Like, you guys open for them. There's plenty of
That's
cross arcs there.
that
Yeah.
and Loathe. We got to go see Loathe and Knock
How
Loose.
fucking good are Loathe, man?
Oh, so good. It was my first time ever seeing them live, and I mean, I'm gonna be honest, it might be the best show I've ever seen. That's saying a lot, 'cause, man. I've seen the Foo Fighters like 3 times.
Yeah.
I love Dave Grohl,
Yeah.
and I've seen. I know everybody's not the biggest Avenged Sevenfold fan, but they put on some pretty good
Hey,
shows, though. That
Mikey's still got some range, all right?
Oh yeah, man. The shows and the performance. I mean, dude, they put on some great shows. It's insane. And
Yeah.
like, but Knock Loose and Loathe was, oh, that was a whole nother level.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that? Was that 2 years ago? I photographed Knock Loose
Nice.
on their tour, and when they stopped through Indianapolis. And bro, I mean, like, I've listened to them, but listening to them live is a whole different fucking experience.
It is. It's you think it's aggressive one, and then if you hear it live, and it's like whole nother level, man. That
Yeah,
guitar tone too. Tell
dude.
people I'm a guitar tone, just like I fiend over guitar tone.
Yeah.
Like man, hearing that guitar tone live, I went home, I just sat and turned knobs for like 3 hours.
I'm gonna find it. I swear to God.
I was, yeah, I got a quiet cortex. I'm like, let me look it up and try to capture
Was
it.
it you were like that Charlie from Always Sunny meme where he's got the like conspiracy wall, like if I turn this one
Yes.
here, this is gonna
Yes.
work.
Dude, that tone was so good. I was like, I bought like IR cabs I didn't even need. Just ridiculous things to make it, but it's just so good. And their lights, their stage performance, everything they put into the image.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that, and that's stuff that I really I personally obsess over, and one day hope to have my own band.
Yeah.
Something you can bring to the table. Is very I guess artistic ways of including that type of stuff on our stage and props and you know things of that nature, which we do. Like we play shows. Like we have a venue here called the Red Flag, and they have
Mhm.
like a big like projector screen behind it, and I take full advantage of that thing. I
Yeah.
use every time I can. It's like if I can, I'll put a music video, not the whole music video, but
Right.
like visualizer on there if I have to. Just something to really stand out and
Yeah.
add some extra dynamic to the show.
Yeah, and not to stay on them too long, but that Knocked Loose show, I mean, the like you said, the stage design, the light design, like
Yeah.
those guys have not cut a corner at all. I'm sure I would throw up if you saw the bill for like what their design cost was and all that. Like it's probably sick.
It
But
is. I had to imagine, especially those lights. Some of those lights I've seen
dude,
just like some of the guys here at our venues was kind of talk about their light setups. Like some of the lights, $4,000 just for the little rotator. I'm like,
yeah,
man, that is. And they got 10
we're in
on
the
stage.
we're on the wrong business, is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's dive into the album a little bit. You've got Love What You Can While You Got Something Left to Love, which is a super long title, but it's I think super powerful too, because even before you get into the track listing or the songs, like that title is about like take this moment, like you're alive right now. Take this moment and love what is out there.
Absolutely. And I think that's really the message. I believe Jason actually came up with that. So, and that was kind of the message behind it. Cause like, I'll be honest, like when we first got signed, or actually when we first got even offered to be signed, we were skeptical. Not because we were skeptical of the signing, we thought somebody might be playing a prank on us. That's like, okay,
Thought you were
come on,
getting
guys.
Shadur Sanders.
Yeah, like come on, that's not funny, But
Yeah.
like, we Jason talked to Sal, I think it was, and then set up the call, and they were like, hey, we like you guys' sound, we like what you do. So, I think from that it was just kind of okay, we have an opportunity here, let's capitalize on it. This once in a lifetime, this is music, we don't always get to play music forever,
No.
especially in a band. A lot of us, we play guitar, play band one point, and then we, have kids and a family and move on. And, it's not often that you get to actually be in a band, be signed, play with bands that you love, and see or listen to. And, a lot of us have been very fortunate to do that. And, I think that's been the biggest, just kind of point of it all. It's like you have something, you love it, appreciate it while you have it, because as we all know, nothing lasts forever.
Yeah. Yeah. If COVID taught us anything, right? Like
Yeah,
live music got fucked real hard.
yeah, I did. That was a rough time. I don't think I've ever spent so much time in my house.
No. And like not to harp on that too much, but like for some people, I'm sure it was great. But for some of us, holy shit, that was a terrible place to be in.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, as you can see, I got stuff at home to keep
Yeah.
me busy, but it only goes so far, man. Social interaction, being around people, I know the world's a scary place sometimes. There's a lot of hate that goes in the world, but people need people, man. And that's the only thing that makes the world better is people being people and doing
Mhm.
what we can to help and being around each other to teach each other and influence each other. And as a person that comes from the background I come from, which, pretty rough lifestyle, I've learned
Yeah.
over my experience that, hey, good people are out there. And the more we're around each other, the more that people who struggle can learn and see what's right. Because a lot of times just people are by themselves and they've been hurt. And I
Mhm.
think COVID really made a lot of that difficult, and I think, being an American, a lot of hate in our country that went around because hey,
Yeah.
it's so much easier to type behind a keyboard and get at each other. But
Yeah, it
when you're
was.
person to person, you have time to interact with people, you build respect for each other, and it just goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And for those that are listening instead of watching this, in the background, you have a Mortal Kombat arcade game, which is
Yes,
fucking dope.
yes.
Um, so one of my favorite memories about Mortal Kombat was when I was growing up, my uncle used to beat the shit out of me in that game, dude. Like absolutely, like did not hold back, right? Like he got good at the game and just fucking stomped me to the point where like he would always be Sub-Zero. He'd back me against the wall.
Oh, that
I had
sounded
to
weird.
I learned how to fucking be Johnny Cage just so I could do that nut uppercut to break the
Yeah.
fucking move. That was it. Oh, it
Dude,
was so good.
I would tell you, I love the arcade games because I had a Sega Genesis as a kid. My uncle,
Yeah.
ironically, he passed it down to me, and I had Mighty Morphin's Power Rangers, and I had Mortal Kombat 2, and this is the all-in-one Mortal Kombat machine.
Yeah.
I can't stand it though. I love it, but I can't stand it because the all-in-one, like sorry, the Joy-Con and stuff that it comes
Yeah.
with are just awful. So anytime I deal with Johnny Cage, it spams that uppercut
Yeah.
all day, man, and I can't do anything about it. I've heard that apparently you can upgrade it, and I'm eventually I'm gonna get into that. But
Yeah.
right now, it's just a really nice piece that when I get tired or I'm frustrated at work, I just turn around and go get my butt kicked in Mortal Kombat. So
Hey, easy stress relief for sure.
I will.
Well,
Seems like I'm stressed out about losing it.
right, right. But it distracts, and that's what you need sometimes,
Yes.
right? Is just clear the mind for a minute and come back. Um, so with this album, you guys have had a few singles come off of it already.
Yes.
Most recently, as you guys have called it, a horny track with Please, which is a dope track. But talk a little bit about just conceptually this album because it is still like I don't think in a bad way, but I think it's still all over the place, but in a way that matters.
Oh yeah, man. I think the way I can explain this, because like there's so much that's gone into this album. So I'll tell a few different stories
Yeah,
here. Just all kind of goes into it. But like one, a lot of us were going through a lot of different in life things. I personally was going through a really hard time relationship wise with the past relationship. Producer also having a similar scenario. Some of us were also having family members that were, ill and
yeah,
passing away. And I think, a lot of each song touches just on different parts of that, like for example, the hole, being down in the hole again. It's like here I am back in the same position, here I am back in the same state of mind and emotion. And sometimes you can try to escape that, but you find yourself back in the same place. And it's I think also a lot of self-reflection, and like I think with like you said with songs like Please, horny songs, some of us are now getting married, we're really understanding what it's like to love a person and like find a partner, that is somebody that we can be with and see a future with. And things I think most people relate to. So it's
yeah,
like, it's just I think expressing things like that and wanting to be loved, stress of depression and all these different things. And also just the state of the world. We have a song that hasn't come out yet that's kind of more about that as well. And like, and for example, even Blur, which is, kind of, I won't get into too much detail. It's kind of
yeah,
self-explanatory, but it's going through episodes and coping with things and like, I think that's what it really is. It's about the full spectrum of just life and emotion, the things you go through about the things you love or the things you think you love. And
yeah,
like, trying to hold on to those things and like it'll, if you've been through it, if you've ever had a breakup, which I'm sure most of us have,
right.
push you through a lot of state of mind. If you've been with somebody long enough, hey, in a relationship, you love them, but hey, you also argue sometimes. You have moments, and if nothing's straight happy, So
If it
it,
is, it's fake. I mean, that's all there is to it.
exactly. So like, I just think it touches on all that stuff and even different things that we've had, for example, like Please and some of those things just kind of also fall into the moments. We have a song idea and we write it, and then next thing you know, we got Marcus from Event Anime jumping in on it. And like, that alone was just crazy for us because like it sounds crazy, but it came from a random whim. I was actually in the car listening to a demo of it. And
Hmm.
I was like, I heard Without a Whisper right before, and I was like, man, it would be crazy if we could get Marcus to sing on this. So there's only one person in the band that I know who can. He's just good at talking to everybody, and that's Jason. So I like messaged Chad. I was like, Jason, please just throw it out there, see if he'd be willing to do it. I beg of you. Jason was like, yeah, I mean, he'll try anything once.
Yeah.
So
Worst case, he says no. I mean, not a big deal, right?
literally, and our bassist Steven, he's a huge event anime fan. Actually named his daughter after one of their songs, and like, well, yeah, Marcus, he's like, man, I love it. I'm willing to do it, and it was just unbelievable, and so that just falls into place like that. So again, it's just the whole song and the whole album is just roller coasters,
Yeah.
emotional roller coasters, things of, like I said, different aspects of life and dealing with life. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why I guess I could explain it. But
Yeah.
and like I said, some of these things just fall into place. And like 10, we got a 10-5-6 feature on one of the songs that hasn't come
Hmm.
out yet, but that just came from Jason and Steven. We played a show with them, and they're big fans of that band. I'm a fan too, but they're much bigger fans than
Right.
me. So giving them their credit.
Yeah.
They were talking to them like a whole show. They just sit. I look in the corner. They're just talking to them. I don't even know if we sold merch that show. They were talking to them so much. But just fanning out with them, and they were really cool people. They were such like just I think open. That's one thing
Yeah.
that I noticed about some bands that they either have or they don't. They were just so open, talking to us, giving us advice. Giving us props, telling us things that feedback, I guess, and like
Yeah.
yeah, they were just really awesome. Like I don't want to say dudes because I think there was a lady there as well. So, but a group of people that
Yeah.
that they were just very open with us, giving us great feedback.
Yeah.
Couldn't couldn't complain, I guess, to say the least. But we ended up reaching out to them too and saying, hey, please,
Right.
So and
Yeah.
yeah, now we got that too. So yeah,
Yeah.
that like you said, the album's all over the place, but again, it's just because hey, we've been through a lot of stuff as people and meeting different people and trying to make the best product obviously as well as we can to relay that and get some people on there as well that we're bands we love, bands we want to I guess push some more out for our fan
Right.
base as well. And that's I mean, obviously these bands, in my opinion, probably have much larger fan bases than us, but just saying like, hey, these are guys we love. We want to play music with them, even if it's our own music and
Yeah.
any way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few things in there that you talked about that I want to touch on. So first is let's talk about, you've kind of touched on it, but like that moment of recognition, I guess, or um approval, whatever word we're gonna use for it, but of others in the scene, like Marcus, who's like, dude, this is sick. I want to be a part of it. What's it like hearing that from someone that you guys are kind of looking up to, but at the same time, like
Whew.
also trying to follow in the footsteps of?
I mean, if you could see our band chat, other than random shit posting, it's
Yeah.
fangirling over stuff like that. We were honestly, we probably spent a whole week just talking about it, looking at each other, and just grinning because
Yeah.
it's like one of those things for us. Because like I said, being just big fans, it's like you never thought. I mean, I've been listening to bands like Event Anime for at least 2-3 years now, and
Yeah.
I never in my wildest, dreams imagine, hey, I'm gonna hit this guy up. We're not Jason's gonna hit this guy up, and we're gonna get him on a track of ours, and he's gonna love our music to some degree. And it's like, it feels great because it makes you feel like, okay, hey, we can really do this if fans who are successful themselves can also recognize that we have some ability, but also it's like just like I said, some really fangirling.
Yeah.
Because nobody, our mindset, look, nobody else is gonna listen to this track. We'll listen to it a million times.
Yeah. Hey, do it on Spotify so you get those streams and that little $40 paycheck or whatever, right?
I tell you this, my only goal at this point is you get Kill Switch on an album with us or something,
Yeah.
whether it be Adam D or Howard Jones or some of that. That's it. That's all. I've met all my life goals at that point.
Yeah. No, I absolutely get that. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is I actually have another podcast for musicians for mental health, but you kind of touched on it a little bit. Let's go down that road, a little. We don't want to harp on it too much, but talk about, songs like Whole, where, you guys are being so open and vulnerable with the lyrics, and, telling these kind of personal stories, and, you know, behind a little bit of a veil of lyrics. But what's it like, A, putting yourself out there in those times, but B, what have you learned in doing so, in being open, and how that's affected the mental health side of things?
Well, I would tell you it is at first it's definitely tough. I always joke with my band. I'm mixed, and I grew up in heavily. Most of my family is African American. I'm predominantly African American. I listen to metal, but I also listen to a lot of rap and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell people it's hard because coming from that to this scene, it's like one, you already feel a little weird and off because it's like, yo, this is not my normal environment.
Yeah.
But and then two, it's like, my culture doesn't really embrace the very open, side of that. And
Yeah.
as I said earlier, I come from a very rough background, and there's a lot of mental health issues in my community. There's a lot of problems that we have that honestly don't get addressed. They get swept under the rug, or they get placed into stereotypes, and it's pretty unfortunate because there's a lot of help that my community needs as a result of
Yeah.
that. And I think that it's hard, it's just really hard to put yourself out there like that. And then, I think for me, it's also worry about, okay, what is my community going to feel about this?
Yeah.
Like, what are my friends going to say? But, I will say a lot of them have been very supportive, and I think, it, it's something that I've even realized with guys like, I don't know if Hardcore Keem and
Mm-hmm.
guys, getting more into the scene from my culture. And, it's getting there. And you got bands like TX from
Yeah.
Texas and things of that nature. So it's like it's tough, and it's really hard to really put yourself out there. It's hard to go out there and every night it's on the line. You got to basically expose yourself, expose that emotional side that you taught your whole life to hide, and keep away from people. And being a hurt person at some point, it's hard to trust that people are gonna take that. And I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of fear with that. Like, what are people gonna think? How are people gonna treat me? Like, it's just
Yeah.
it's tough, man. It really is. Especially at least for myself, I could speak from personal experience. I used to think about it all the time. I used to play in the littler bands, and I was such an active guitar player. Man, I could guitar flips all the time, crazy. Now I'm on bigger stages with 1,000 people at festival, and I'm like crapping my pants silently because, like,
Right.
oh man, it's just so much different when eyes are on you, and again, as you said, like you're putting that emotional side out there, exposing yourself, being vulnerable. And but I think also at the end of the day, it's important because I think that's what allows people to also come to the scene. That's what allows people to make that step to say, hey, wait, I'm not afraid to express myself neither. I'm not, doesn't
Yeah.
make me less of a person, a man, whatever your, thing you're trying to stick to be an emotional person. And like, even as a dad, man, that's one thing I really try to teach my kids. It's like, look, it's okay to cry. There's times and places for everything, but you gotta be able to express, you gotta be able to communicate, you gotta be able to show who you are, to be one, to be happy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also, to answer the other part of your question, how it's kind of helped out. It's like that's what I've noticed has kind of changed from that. It's like things that I used to struggle with, I'm more happier as a result because I don't have to struggle with them. I don't have to
Yeah.
hide being a metal guy in my community. I don't have to hide, liking some of the dorky stuff that I like. And, I mean, I even do stuff. I keep fish, as you probably see in the background
Yeah.
there. I don't, I don't really talk about it, but like, it's one of the
It's
things that
still
I
cool.
do. Yeah, one of the things I do, and like I would say something I even notice is I go to my job and like I work virtually, so a lot of people are like behind cameras and
Yeah.
screens, but they always try to do these meetings where everybody wants to kind of talk to each other and get to know you. And I used to never participate in those; just couldn't pay me to do it. I don't know why. I just thinking on this. I know why. Just fear, but
Yeah.
but I think ever since doing a lot of this stuff, honestly, it's helped me break out a lot of that. I find myself talking about my band now. My managers are following my band and asking to come to shows and stuff. And it's one of those things that it actually helped me on my job and be
Yeah.
more close to my coworkers and things of that nature. So I mean, is that, it's definitely helped in quite a few ways. And honestly, even in my relationship, to be truthful, it's like being, able to express my emotions a little more openly in ways that I didn't really find acceptable before.
Yeah.
I think it's gone a long way, and being able to be more of myself, be goofy, joke around and
Yeah.
listen to the music I love at any time. Which sounds crazy, but hey, I've been there, and like,
Yeah.
it just helps you, like I said, kind of step out of your shell and be the person you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And you reminded me when you said that you've told your kids that, like, it's okay to cry. There's times for that and everything. I had Matty Mullins of Memphis Mayfire on
Yeah,
here a couple years ago now.
to make
Uh
the voice of a generation.
Dude. And now he's doing the Amber Lynn stuff too, and fucking crazy.
Uh,
Uh but he hit me with a line that has stuck with me, and I use it all the time. I asked him, if he could go back in time, like what would he tell a younger version of himself? And
uh-huh.
he said that he would tell himself that it's okay to feel, it's okay to have these big emotions, to be sad, to be angry, to have every emotion, but when it's time to be happy, you're allowed to be happy. And I
It's
was
so
like,
hard though.
fuck, like giving yourself the permission to be happy is huge.
It is. It's hard though, man.
Yeah.
It is, because when and I think a lot of guys in the metal scene or rock scene, we that's I think what drives us a lot to this scene is hardships, hard lives, and like
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we focus so much on everything else that we forget to be happy ourselves, because
Yeah.
music makes us happy, but then it becomes a job when you're assigned band. And it's
Right.
like, okay, that's great, but are you still being happy? Are you
Right.
still focusing on why you love to do this? Or are you grinding because you feel like that's what you have to do,
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree. So walk through the album a little bit, as far as, obviously we don't want to ruin stuff. We want surprises for people when they listen to the album, but walk through, like, kind of just some of the, let's maybe do it this way. What was the song on the album that, like, you guys could not get nailed down? Like, was there one song that was like, fuck, we cannot figure this out?
Yeah, I won't say the name because it hasn't released yet,
Right.
but there is one that there are going to be people who love it, and there are going to be people who absolutely hate it. And, that's okay. Everybody's
Yeah.
got their niche. It's funny to me because the songs that the guys, like, we release Please and stuff, and, some of our fans were like, look, man, that's just too soft for me. And that's like, one guy
Okay.
called it Punk Goes Pop with Pink Snot. And I was like, I was like,
All
that's,
right.
I know. But it is like the poppiest song on the album. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he's gonna love this song because it's just straight grind to the wall hardcore.
Yeah.
I'm a hardcore guy and I hate the song personally. It's not, I think that's normal.
Yeah.
As a musician, we were writing it. I love parts of it. There are some of it I love, but overall, I just hate it. I just, not because I hate it like that, but just when I hear it, there's things I want to change, and that just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So, but it's not a bad song at all. For the record, it's not. It's just
Yeah.
not my personal taste, and like, yeah, it's one of those songs that we sat in a room for a long time, just kind of going like, and we were just like, look,
Yeah.
we're just gonna go with this. We're gonna see. We sent it to the label and they liked it. So that's what made us keep it. We were like, okay, the label says they like it. They want to keep it. We'll keep it,
Yeah.
because they believe that, hey, there's and I get it. There's an audience for it. And it's definitely one of our heavier songs, but it's definitely going to go on that song list of songs we probably rarely play,
Yeah.
which I think that's cool because, when you have songs like that and people love them and you randomly come out of nowhere and play it, that's a cool little incentive to add to some shows.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like hometown shows, right? Doing a surprise track on a hometown show, just that'll light up everybody. So
Yeah.
then the flip side of that, I guess, is going to be, what song was, or even if you don't name it because it's not out yet, what was the
Mhm.
song that was like, did we really just fucking finish that in 5 minutes? Like, what are we doing here?
I think that song was, it could have been Whole or Please. Those were the two songs for me that, I think were my top one spot that I had to kind of interchange.
Yeah.
I love Blur, and there's a few other songs that we haven't released. This next one coming out is a really good one too. but Hole was just like, geez, man. When I heard that, and this one guy put it, and he goes, I could hear the thall in it, and I was like, yeah, that was the goal. And like, it was just so like, we were like, look, we need something balls to the wall heavy. We need something that slaps,
Yeah.
just hits right out the gate. When you hear it, it's like, what the fuck is going on? And and then it just breaks out. And like, I was just like, man, we were writing it, and every step of the way, I don't think there was one time where I was like, I don't love this song. I was like, I love everything we're doing. I was like, don't stop, just keep going. When I left, because I had work that day, so I had to leave a little early, and we had about 2/3 of the song tracked. I was like, I don't give a shit, just keep going, just send it to me because I know what we're cooking right now. No
Yeah.
matter what comes out, it's gonna be good. Just
Let's just make it a 32-minute song. We'll just make that the album.
dude, I wish, but it's definitely it's one of my favorite songs, and like it is just heavy, and it's more of my style. It's what I love, and like as I said, I'm a bit of a hardcore guy, and
Yeah.
I like metalcore too, but like that more just straight up hitting all the way through heaviness, having I don't want to say a breakdown the whole song, but yeah, it's kind of
It's kind of a breakdown to start, and then it just doesn't let up, right? Like,
basically, yeah, it's
yeah,
just break it down the whole time,
yeah.
emotionally, physically, mentally.
Which is awesome too, because like I think what I've noticed about your music since Shane put you guys on my radar and stuff, we've talked about it earlier about like how diverse your sound is and everything. Um, is like you've got songs that are workout playlist songs, and then
Oh
you've
yeah,
got songs that are just driving songs, and then you know what I mean? Like you guys
yeah.
fit on so many different styles of playlists that it's like, fuck it, I've got a dead 7 song on this playlist. I don't care.
All right, dude. Speaking of that, because you said this question earlier too, there's a song that is such in that realm for me that like we I love it. We changed something about it that I wasn't the biggest fan of, but again, everything has a reason.
Yeah.
But there's a song, and I don't mind to spoil this name because it doesn't really say much, but it's called Tattoo. And oh man, I love just the overall ride of the song because it's such a drive song, but it
Yeah.
could be a workout song, and it's like please style but heavy, and it's not like
Okay.
serenading necessarily, but like it's definitely one of those songs about that kind of vibe, talking to a partner, somebody
Mm-hmm.
you want and desire in that way, or have dealings with, and like but the overall guitar and stuff is still heavy and all of that, and like it's kind of a sleeper song, and honestly, we did it in two different ways, and I hope in the future we can re-release it to kind of do it the way we did it the first time vocally,
Yeah.
because the way Jason did it, the first time, I at least personally, the way he just expressed himself was just so raw and so like
Yeah.
and from what I understand, I think he said he wants to do it that way live. So most people who hear it live will hear that version of it, but on the radio, it's just more of a singing style. And like, man, that song, it's
Yeah.
it's definitely one of those songs. So
Yeah. And I love when albums have that sleeper track. I think a lot of albums do, but like when you can identify what the sleeper track's gonna be,
oh
and then
yeah.
to watch it grow and everything, it's like people they found it. All right, like
Yeah.
we got this.
Oh yeah, man. I always try to look at like some of the feedback we get on some of these songs just to see what, some of the
Mm-hmm.
people say. And like most of it's positive, but I kind of want to see what I think people react to the most. So it kind of just gives me an idea of like, okay, like uh, you know, me and Steven will always kind of talk about this before we release, like what songs we think are going to be the top songs. And
Yeah.
I'm on a near perfect record of songs that are, I always tell him, like, this is going to be the top song. He goes, you think? I'm like, yeah. And then we'll be like a year or two later, and it's like the top song every time. And
Yeah.
I'll be like, this is the worst song. And usually that's the,
Almost every time. Yeah.
so I try to kind of see, that way I can kind of read, I think, what people like to react to. And yeah, I think that one's gonna be a decent sleeper. That one, but there's another one that I'm trying not to spoil the name because I feel bad if I say too much, but there's another one that's like really like I don't know how to explain it, but it's a very different style than every other song you've heard so far on the track. And I think it's going to be another sleeper too. We probably have two or three sleepers that are going to be released with the album that
Yeah.
honestly I think they could have been singles, but you know, it's we could release a whole album as singles, or we can release an album. You know?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I've had this conversation before, and I think you guys are doing it a little more uh, tight knit, like what we were used to growing up, and that's two, three singles, and then the album comes out.
Yes.
How important is that to you versus it seems like a lot of younger bands are doing this thing where it's like we're going to release 9 of the 10 songs and then we're just going to call it the fucking album and give you one more song. Like I know there's a method to that whole like single release thing, but like for you
Yes.
guys, what's that, mentality with it?
Well, it's kind of a hybrid of that because I get the mentality of, hey, let's release singles. You know, if you want to talk about giving songs the most attention, but what a lot of people fail to realize, in my opinion, is that all it takes is for one of those songs to hit and you kill your momentum. So you
Yeah.
can do that, but you have to hope that you can keep that momentum the whole time. And like, I think for us, it's like, hey, we sat down with the label, we sat down, here's the songs we think hit the most. Label looks and says, hey, we agree with that, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. So let's release some of these then as singles so we can give those to individual attention. But then while we have now, that built up audience, let's release also then the rest of the album after enough time so then people can then hear the rest of it, and then
Right.
have that ready to go and not keep stringing people along of, okay, what's next, what's next. And it's like, yeah, again, you can do that if you're Sleep Token or somebody that has a huge audience,
Yeah.
but when you're band developing yourself, you want to kind of get a sound established out there. You want to get it something to people to have a basis of. And like for us, I know we have prior music. This is our first album. There's no reason for us to string along every song as a single. It's, hey,
Yeah.
let's get the good ones out so we can grab that attention, show, hey, we got some stuff coming your way, and then let's drop all the music at an album release. That way, okay, here's the full sound, here's the full spectrum of what we're doing. Now you can see, okay, wait a minute, well, hey, you don't like Please? Well, now you got Tattoo. Now you got all these other couple of
Yeah.
songs that are pretty heavy that, if you want to listen to that half of the album, or they're the whole half or just straight with the heavy stuff. Now, if you're having an emotional day and you want to get in touch with your, softer emotional side and, have a drive or go on a hike,
Yeah.
sit back and contemplate life and emotions, we got a whole half of an album for that, and like, like I said, just being able to give that full spectrum and rather than stringing people along all year, it's like, let's just release it at that point, especially after having like 4 single releases.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot, like you said, some bands will do 9. And I'll tell you personally, I've never made it past the third or fourth song for any band that does that. I wait till the rest of the album comes out and then I jam through what I like. And I mean, truth be told, some of my favorite musicians, I listen to their albums and I save 2 to 3 songs from their album. I never
Mm-hmm.
save the whole album, so I can't imagine everybody else does anything different, or I don't expect them to. If
Right.
they want to do that, I appreciate it, and all love and thank you for the support. But I understand realistically everything we make isn't for everybody. Even
Right.
for our own fans, it's not for every song's not gonna resonate with every person. But we're a diverse group of dudes in our band, so that's
Yeah.
to be expected with all the different influences.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like you said, even within the band, not everything hits, right? Like
Oh
you've got
yeah,
a couple songs that are like, they're okay, like they're
yeah,
fine. I'll play them. They're whatever. I'm proud of them. But if I'm gonna rank them, they're not at the top.
yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
And then
So
like I mean, for me, honestly, I think it's crazy to say there's only really that one song for me, but yeah, like you said, it just in general, every song's not going to resonate with everybody, and even in your own band,
yeah.
that's
Well, and
just how it is.
especially as you get a bigger catalog under you and whatnot, when you think about these bands that have been doing it for 20 plus years,
Oh yeah,
like you mentioned Foo Fighters earlier. Do you think they
yeah.
like fucking playing every one of their songs to this day? Probably not.
Everlong again for the
Yeah.
100th time this year.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, it's insane. So with an album, I preach this not everybody does it, and I understand. But like for me, when an album comes out, I have to listen to it front to back at least 3 times. That first one's the surface listen. Second
Yes.
one, I'm starting to pay attention to kind of the lyrics and understanding what's being said. And then that third one, I'm just like fully in listening to the sound space and
Oh
what the fuck is going on in here, which you guys do really well. Like your soundscapes, there's so many layers and depth
oh yeah.
to what you guys do that like at a surface listen, if you're just driving with the windows down, like you're only going to hear parts of stuff. But
Oh
if you
yeah.
focus in on you guys' music, there is shit happening in the background. There are harmonics going on in the sides. Like, what the fuck is happening? So for
Oh
you guys, or you specifically, I guess, for this album, even though it's not like a true conceptual story album or anything, how important is it to you that somebody listens front to back on it?
man, I think it's essential because you have to, like you said, there are a lot of dynamics with our music, and like there's layers. I mean, if I could, I do our live sound stuff, and I tell you the amount of backtracks I have to put in a file for all the stuff that aren't, it's not even stuff we could play because they're not guitar, they're not drums, it's
Right.
just, synth and FX and all this crazy stuff. But, it adds to the dynamic. And the more you listen to it, the more you realize how creative it is. I think that's the thing that's important. I think, more specifically, like, even in like the song whole, there's this
Mm-hmm.
percussion. And if you take out everything, it's just and you wouldn't expect it to be that because you
Right.
don't think that when you hear the song, but it literally sounds like techno club music. You wouldn't
Yeah.
think that at all, but that's just the dynamic of it. But then also on the lyrical content, the lyrics are very I call them invasive sometimes because they'll hint a lot of stuff and then kind of sing into a chorus, and it's like,
Right.
wait a minute, what do you mean by that? And it's like down in the hole again. What does that mean? It's like, but if you start to really listen and start to listen to some of the songs and what Jason's singing about, it starts to, oh, okay, he's talking about this, or he's talking about that, or he's explaining a scenario of this. And like, I think that's something that really resonates when you've heard the lyrics enough to really put it together sometimes. And it's one thing to hear it and sing it, right? But then when you start to ask yourself, what is he talking about? What does that mean? Then you really start to put some of the songs together and like what they're about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that, and I think it's crazy because I've got one friend. He fucking hates when I send him albums to listen to because he knows I'm going to be like, "Did you listen to it front to back?" And he never does. Uh, but like, I think that's one of those things that the I'm going to sound so fucking old and cynical about this.
All right, man.
Streaming fucked everybody up on this, right? Like when we were buying CDs, you listened to the fucking album front to back. And now that
Yes.
you have streaming, it's like, oh, I heard the single, I'm just saving the single. But I
Yeah.
think the thing for me is it's kind of a underappreciated art now when it comes to sequencing. There's a reason these songs are in the order that they're in. There's a
Yeah.
reason that things crossfade into other things. And by
Yes.
jumping around in it, the chaos just fucks that entire mentality, even when it's supposed to be chaotic. But like, for example, if you were to, with what we've just been talking about, if you were to skip from tattoo to please, even like,
Yes.
well, in that order, it doesn't work. In the order on the album, it works. So
Yes.
what are we doing here?
Oh yeah, especially our older material too,
Yeah.
because some of our older stuff is a lot like that. Where like, what is it? We have God's Eye, and that leads into Weather. And if
Mm-hmm.
you listen to Weather, it sounds, like okay, there's this intro. But if you listen to God's Eye first, the outro of that go straight into Weather. Now, if you listen to God's Eye by itself, you're like, oh, that's sick. But then at the end, there's like this little, these little chords like
Yeah.
played, and it's like, okay, what the fuck is going on? But then, I'm sorry, reverse that Weather into God's Eye, and that comes into the beginning of God's Eye. I apologize, mix that up. But in the beginning of God's Eye, you're like, why is that there? But if you listen to Weather first, it makes sense because it flows into that song. So
Yeah.
you're exactly right. Some of that stuff it has to be pieced together in the order of the album and the way. Because I mean, we designed it that way. Honestly, when we I would tell you this, our producer, or one of them, Caleb, he's actually in the band The Funeral Portrait.
Yeah,
And uh, that's something he taught us very well. It's like, look, you got to think about it from the artistic point of not just your songs, but your album itself. Like you write a bunch of songs and you call that an album, or you can write an album, which that sounds so, it's simple to say, but
yeah,
it deeper level, it's like you write an intro song, so the song we wrote for an intro was specifically written to be the intro song for this album. And it wasn't
yeah,
just a song we wrote and said, hey, that's a dope song. It was like, no, we wrote that song knowing we were writing the intro to this album. And then when we got to the end of the album, the was, hey, this is the outro song. We are gonna write the outro song. And like having that type of goal and that kind of at least structure in mind when that we're writing, it makes a huge difference in like how you write the album, but putting it all together and like how it
yeah,
flows, the whole vision and how it comes out in the end.
yeah, absolutely. Uh, does the outro song loop back into the intro? Like, if you were to just play straight through, will it loop back itself very well, or is it drastically different?
Mm, I think it is a bit drastically different because we come in with Blur.
Right.
Blur's a really headstrong, heavy song, I guess, and I don't mean trapped headstrong, but
No.
but just
Never again, right?
yeah. But yeah, I mean, you could repeat the album. I think it doesn't stop, or like I don't think it's such a hard difference that you like. Oh, I couldn't repeat the album if you did that. But I just think it exits the album. It's designed to say,
Yeah.
hey, you've completed your mission here. We're at the end, smooth ride out, say la boo, off to the races kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like yeah,
Awesome.
it's an outro, I guess, to be the
Yeah. Yeah.
specifics.
Yeah. Awesome. So I appreciate you, having this conversation with me. I refuse to think of better questions, so I buy stupid card games that are like this or that's and whatnot.
Hey,
So to transition to our outro here, I'm gonna read
yes.
a couple this or that's or would you rather's, whatever you want to call it. So would you rather be able to read minds, but only people's negative thoughts towards you, or would you rather try to sell something to someone every single time you have a conversation?
I'd be a salesman. I used to be a salesman, so I'll go with that. I'll do that, man. That's look, because I'm one of those people. I believe it depends on what it is, but like as long as it's a good product, I don't have a problem mentioning this stuff. At halftime, if it's good, it sells itself. So
Yeah, yeah, fair. Would you rather add ghost peppers to everything you eat or get rained on every time you step outside?
oh man. Oh man.
I
I
feel
am
like
just
I could prepare for the rain. The ghost pepper is going to fuck you up every time.
yeah, it's like I don't handle spicy stuff well.
No.
Oh, and I don't mind the rain to be honest with you, but it's like God, I imagine if we're playing a show or something, that would suck.
Yeah,
That would,
that's fair. That's
but
fair.
here's the question: does it only rain over me, or is it raining everybody? Like,
It just says every time you step outside. So I don't know. If it's just over you, you could deal with that, right? Just wear one of those silly little umbrella hats and
yeah, well, yeah, man. I mean, might as well.
right, right. Let's see. Let's go with our last set here. Um, be required to carry a lit candle with you at all times, or always be wrong when you push or pull on a door to open
I already do the second one, so
it. Yeah, me too. It can say it right on the door, and I still like, oh fuck.
I don't, man. It's just had a. I'm a bit ADHD, and by a bit, I have ADHD. So I'm really ADHD,
Right.
and I just sometimes my mind wanders, and I walk up the doors, and I'm just.
Yep.
And half the time, I don't realize I got this slide door behind me. I push this thing all the time, and it's like I've actually pushed it off the hinge a few times. So,
Yeah.
man,
as as long as you haven't ran through it. I had a roommate in college one night. I'm not even joking, man. We're cooking. We'd stepped outside on the little like patio thing. We had just cleaned the whole fucking apartment. Like shined that fucking glass, right?
oh,
We're out front, doors closed, and my roommate's like, "Oh fuck, the spaghetti." goes running and crashed all the way through the fucking sliding glass door because he couldn't see the door was closed.
Like broke glass and all.
All the
Oh,
way into the fucking house, dude. Like a
oh.
cartoon character. Oh, we had a piece of plywood up for like 3 weeks just trying to cover the hole.
Jeez. I
Yeah.
bet he won't forget that
Oh
one.
no, I'm sure he has walked with his hand out like every sliding door. Is it there? Yeah, okay.
Like, I was like, why is Steve walking with his hands out? It's like, it's a long story, man. Long story.
Yeah. Bet you won't run into a door though, so it's fine. I always told him after that, I was like, I want to take you to like a carnival or whatever, to one of those mirror rooms or mirror
Yeah.
houses. I just want to see you start bouncing off fucking mirrors. Like,
Probably has nightmares about
dude,
stuff like
I'm sure to this day that was fucking 15 years ago or whatever it's been now, and I'm sure
that.
he still thinks about it. Um, that's everything I've got for you, man. So kind of the standard outro again. I really appreciate you having this conversation.
Yeah.
Stoked for this album. Hopefully people, are picking it up and checking things out. But kind of the standard outro, I just give you the time. Obviously, I'll link all the socials and stuff, but where can people find you? What's the best way to interact with you guys, and anything that you don't get in trouble with either the label or press about upcoming shows or anything like that you want to drop?
Yeah, I mean, well, we got a show tomorrow in my home state, which is Tennessee. We're playing in Nashville, I believe. Oh man, I can't remember the name of the venue. I will look it up in a second. But if you, I know we're
I'm
playing.
looking. I don't know if I have it.
Yes, I'll grab it. But I know we also play Pops in Illinois, St. Louis area Friday. That's actually a headliner for us. We got another show in Ohio, in Cleveland, on next Wednesday. I'm getting this pulled up now. I got it. So,
All right.
so we're playing Nashville at the end. That's the name. I can't
Yep.
want to call it the end, but it's the
Mm,
end.
yeah.
And then in Ohio, looks like we're playing in Lakewood, and the Foundry is the name of it.
Okay. Yeah.
Then we're going to be at Pops in Sauget, which is St. Louis area, Friday. Um, Man, best way to probably interact with us is probably going to be Instagram. That's probably where we try to stay the most musically present for a lot of our stuff. My user handle is Oreo Cakester 23, kind of a mixed person pun. So,
Yeah.
but but yeah, no, I just tell most people that's where you can find us, hit us up. I mean, we generally chat with anybody, everybody, and
Yeah.
talk about music, talk about whatever. I mean, we game a lot too. We have a Discord group where we kind of just hang out and chill and invite people that want to be a part of it. We play a lot of COD and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I personally am a big WWE fan. My
Me
One of
too,
my other
man.
life goals, maybe some wrestler uses our music as a theme song. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
But WWE 2K and things like that. If not, I'm usually playing police sim with my son because he's big into being a police officer. So we've been diving in that game. But yeah, I mean, just that, or our socials, our Instagram, merch stuff is always on there. I know SharpTone keeps a lot of it in their store too as well.
Hmm.
But just wherever you see us, man, if you see us at a show, say what's up, and we usually would chit chat with you, talk with you, hang out, and for the most part, we just honestly really down to earth guys. We just try to, talk and relate as best as we can. Some of us are a bit socially awkward. Ironically, our one of our coolest guys in the band, I think you talked to him earlier, is Timbo.
Yeah.
So that dude races cars. Me and him talk about cars quite a bit. Him and Jason as well,
Yeah.
because me and Jason have a little bit of experience with working on cars. But like Tim is like full on knows his stuff and races cars and all sorts of stuff, man. And he's like one of the most like socially, I don't say scared people, but like he just does,
Just like
he doesn't,
reserved.
yeah, he's so reserved. He just doesn't want to, make the wrong impression. But I'm like, Tim, you're literally like the coolest dude in the band when it comes down to it. Software developer and everything. It's like, man, you just gotta talk to people and be open. But like you said, that's hard and
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, just hey, come talk to us. We'll do our best to socialize and not be awkward. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm gonna ask it real quick because I'm a big
yeah.
WWE fan too.
Oh yeah.
Active roster, who's the superstar that you think would like fit a Dead 7 song?
Ooh, okay. I got a few of these. Okay. Me and my girlfriend actually went to SummerSlam, and fortunate enough to see John Cena and all that. People who could definitely use much better theme songs, and I know they're trying to get rid of Def Rebel. They can
Dude, the
holler at that
worst
seven.
fucking thing they did was Death Rebel.
Yeah,
God.
I mean, I do Damian Priest would be a good one. You know, let's see who else. Honestly, quite a few. There's some people that I feel like, like Roxanne Perez and other people could
Yeah.
probably use some different themes. So I feel like Rhea Ripley, but she already has Motionless in White, so we're not
Yeah,
gonna
I
do
was gonna say that's kind of a big deal, guy.
so. But people like that, Alistair Black, he kind
Yeah.
of has a dark theme song, and he wants to stop looking like the Undertaker and get a different vibe. Hey, dead7's waiting for you. So
Yeah. Yeah. Was it I don't know if it still is, I can't remember. Was it Code Orange that did his song?
yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
dude's
So
sick. But I love the song, but I'm like, man, every time he pops up like a vampire, I
yeah.
just
Yeah. It the very first time it was like, this is fucking dope.
oh yeah.
And then every time since it's been like, okay, like that's this you're in the running now for the slowest entrance of all time with Goldberg and fucking the Undertaker,
Oh
right?
God.
Like,
Yeah, but you know what? I'm telling my girlfriend about this. When the Undertaker came to the ring, you were scared. Like
yeah,
it didn't matter. So it made sense why they did his that way. But like that's why I tell people, like, no, you're not the Undertaker, man. So you
yeah.
gotta find a different niche. But hey, And my favorite wrestler at the time, I know it's a little cliche, but LA Knight, his theme song is
Hey,
his theme song. But hey, if he wants dead7 theme song, we're here for
yeah.
him.
I'm a big fan of LA. I liked him back when he was Eli Drake over in Impact and TNA as well.
Oh yeah.
And I think the thing that he's done really well, we're going to end this conversation because I know you've got shit to do too. But
All
the
right.
thing that I think he's done so well is he has captured, like, he is himself,
Yes.
but he's turned up to 11 and he knows how to, like, he did that very short, uh, during a promo, a very short, like, mental health nod. And it was like, cool. He gets it. You know what I mean? And I think so many people at that point were like, even if they were on the fence about him, we're like, oh no, we bought in. We got this.
Look, I'm just glad his name, what was it, Max Dupree? That
Oh,
God, I was like,
he
what?
hated that name.
And for good reason, because like, and then I'm supposed to believe his sister is Maxine Dupree, and it's like, well, what are we doing here? This isn't the '90s
Yeah,
anymore, WWE. So,
yeah.
oh
Maximum male models.
yeah, you know what though? What's that group of the two Swede? I think they're like Swedish dudes.
The
Pretty
pretty
deadly.
deadly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
For
kind of
some
like
reason
them.
they work. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know
they
what
quit
it is.
growing on me.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. All right. Well, we'll end this conversation here. I'm sure we're going to connect more in the future, especially even if we just fucking talk about wrestling for a whole podcast. Uh, but no, I'm stoked for you. We'll be blasting this as much as we can, try to help, hype up the album and everything.
Appreciate
I'm stoked for it already, just based on what I've heard. So definitely we'll stay in touch. And if you get closer to Indianapolis, we'll link up for a show and all that.
Yeah, I said we're actually gonna, ironically say that we're gonna run to Indianapolis to Sweetwater because
Yeah.
we've got this inside joke because they always reach out to us and call us. We've spent so much money there that we're like, we just should go there.
Yeah.
Like actually meet the people that we talk to on the phone all the
that
time.
that campus, it's actually up in Fort Wayne is where the Sweetwater like campus is. It is fucking insane, dude. Like,
Man.
it's going to be one of those, like, remember being a kid and wanting to go to Disney World? This is the
Yeah.
adult musician version of that. Like,
Oh, I
it's so
can't
dope.
wait. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it, man. That and we're gonna. Now I know we're gonna end, but we're gonna
No,
try
you're
to
good.
go by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I
Yeah.
gotta annoy all the people they're asking about the pick of destiny. So see how that goes.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Awesome. Well, I've enjoyed this. Like I said, we'll keep it blasting for you. I'll hit you up later on for other stuff, I'm sure. And just keep doing what you're doing, man. I think it's going to work. And it's right on the cusp of, hopefully this album is that thing that, like, flips the switch for everybody to be like, oh, fuck, I need to mess with dead7.
Well, man, I appreciate it. I hope they feel that way. If not, we'll keep coming back and try to come back as better and better. So if you don't love us, at least give us some feedback because we always take that and try to make sure that we just being the best we can be.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Take care. Be safe.
You too.